Okay, so today we're going to be doing a reaction with baking soda and vinegar. And these are our materials that we'll be using, and these are the instructions that we'll be following. I've modified slightly the amount that we'll be using, but the process is still the same. So before we start the experiment, you need to answer these questions here. So you need to tell me, if I'm mixing baking soda and vinegar, which is the acid and which is the base. And you need to tell me the state of matter of baking soda and vinegar at room temperature. Your answers need to go over here. So the vinegar is in this jug. So here it is, you can see that. And then the baking soda is here in this beaker. So pause the video and answer those questions really quickly. Okay, so while hopefully you've answered your questions. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be assembling our experiment here. So the first thing I'm going to do is pour 20 milliliters of vinegar into the flask. It says 50, but we're actually going to use 20. We figured out that's better. So I'm going to try to not make a mess. Oops, too much. And if you're looking here, you should be able to see that the vinegar is up to the 20 milliliter mark. We're going to be pouring that in. Okay, and if you notice here, our mass went up a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to take our balloon and put it on the end of a funnel. We're going to be adding 5 milliliters of baking soda to the balloon. Just trying to put that down, that didn't work very well. Okay, get this guy on here. So that's there. And then I'm going to get 5 milliliters of baking soda. Okay, so I'm going to add that here. You can see that that's all now nice and safely into the balloon. And then we're going to take the balloon, and without spilling the baking soda into the vinegar, we're going to put that over the mouth of the flask. So once I pick up the balloon and dump the contents into the flask, what you want to be doing is you're going to be making observations, facts, quantitative or qualitative, using measurements or descriptors, probably a little bit of both. So we used, again, 20 milliliters of vinegar, 5 milliliters of baking soda, and then again, you need to be giving me a description of what's happening here. So 3 facts. And then while it's occurring, you're going to be giving me 3 possibilities as to why it's fizzing and creating the reaction that you're going to see in just a moment. And then you're also going to draw and label your diagram. And it says water bottle, but we're actually using a flask, so that's what that means. So you're going to draw the picture here in this box. So before we get started here, the mass is 78.4 grams. And we're going to record that here. And then we're also going to record the mass when we're finished. Okay, here we go. Okay, notice lots and lots of fizzing. The balloon is being inflated. It's going to take a minute to react. If you've ever made a homemade volcano before, you've seen this happen. Obviously, using a lot more vinegar and a lot more baking soda would produce a much more spectacular reaction. We just didn't want the balloon to fly off of the flask here. So we've still got some fizzing going on, still got some reacting happening. It's not quite finished yet. If I swirl it around a little bit, I can get some more fizzing to happen. See if I can get this to happen a little bit faster. Still fizzing. It's much calmer than it was a minute ago. And I'll know that it's done reacting once it's not making any more fizz. You can hear the fizzing as well, kind of like when you open a can of soda and you pour it into your glass. It's the same kind of fizz. Still a little bit, almost done. Okay, I believe it is complete. And what we should see is that our mass is now 78.1 grams. We've lost a little bit, but notice it is pretty close. You're going to be filling that in on your table here. You also make sure you want to draw and label this particular diagram of what you see right here on your paper. And then you need to answer the question at the bottom. So the question at the bottom is referring to what substance is in the bottom of the flask. You should see a white substance that is not leftover baking soda. It is actually a salt. It is the result of combining an acid and a base together.